Our dear friend or brother Scott Ritter is here with us. Welcome back, Scott.
Thanks for having me.
Let's start. Please hit the like button, helping us reaching more people. And Scott, let me start with what Pete Hegseth said briefing today. Here is what he said. Yeah, he. What is your understanding of who is he addressing? Is he talking to the press, to the Democratic Party? He's talking to the people in the United States. He's talking to the people in the region, in the West Asia. Who is the audience?
I don't know. I
Yeah.
think everybody. I mean, this is a man who, Theodore Roosevelt once said, "Speak softly, but carry a big stick." Um, Pete Hegseth is a man who's screaming loudly in order to impress on everybody that we have a big stick. But if you have to be reminding everybody about how big, bad, and important we are, maybe we're not as big and bad and as important as we think we are. So I think there's a lot of bluster going up here to disguise the fact that we're in trouble in Iraq, I mean in Iran, and he's doing his best to distract people from digging too deep into the fact that Iran has the strategic initiative. It's the United States that's reevaluating its plans every 24 hours, not Iran. And it's Pete Hegseth that has to go in front of people and play the role of cheerleader.
Yeah. Scott, just in 2 days, we have seen Iranian attacking the headquarters or somehow those offices of CIA in the region. And how how do you see this strategy on the part of Iranians? Because they started with it's not just about that Iranian drone strike we had on US based ammunition warehouse in Iraq as well. And how do you see the way that Iran they're not just going after Israel, they're mostly focused in the region, in the Persian Gulf Arab states and around Iran. How what is the strategy on their part?
I think the strategy of Iran is to permanently evict the United States from the Middle East. They're attacking the military installations, they're attacking diplomatic facilities, they're attacking intelligence facilities, and they're attacking the nations that play host to these. So I think Iran is setting the conditions for eventual conflict termination, which will be Iran will stop these attacks when these nations kick the United States out of their soil.
Yeah. And today I talked with Laith Marouf, who is in Beirut. He said that Hezbollah is attacking Israel and they're feeling that there is no air defense system, and everything they send, they get into Israel without having any problem. What is your understanding and how do you see the interceptors right now in Israel?
Well, I mean, what we're experiencing right now is a continuation of the 12-day war. And we know at the end of the 12-day war, neither Israel nor the United States nor the two of them, operating together had a solution to the Iranian ballistic missile threat. And that's been played out today as, the Iranians are launching attacks that are penetrating the defenses and inflicting serious harm on Israel. We now see Hezbollah, engaging in this conflict. I don't know the specifics of the weaponry that are being used by Hezbollah, how sophisticated they are. It's very difficult to make an assessment, except to point out that Hezbollah rockets are impacting on Israeli soil, which implies that the Israelis are not able to defend themselves effectively from the threat from Hezbollah. I can't wait to see what happens when Ansarallah enters the fray and starts firing its missiles and drones. I think we're looking at a conflict where assumptions had been made about the effectiveness of air defense that have been proven wrong, and this is going to require a continuous readjustment of war plans on the part of Israel and the United States and their Gulf Arab allies. Iran, on the other hand, just continues to do what it does, sort of a pre-planned action of broad spectrum pressure being placed on Israel, the United States, and the Gulf Arab region.
The two THAAD systems were, based on what Iranians are talking about, were destroyed, and the United States is bringing the defense system from South Korea. And are these new, or do they need, because it's not just the air defense system, you have to have the interceptors to go. How do you see that concept of bringing all they have in South Korea, other countries, to the region to defend Israel, while everybody knows in the region that the United States focus is to defend Israel, not these Arab states who are feeling the heat, who are getting hit by Iranian missiles?
Well, I mean, it's not just the Gulf Arab states that are, understanding that they play second fiddle to Israel. I think Ukraine is figuring that one out, and I also think that South Korea, Japan, and Taiwan are also figuring that out. The United States had promulgated a geopolitical posture through the National Security and Defense Doctrine that was published in November that spoke of achieving conventional military overmatch with China in the Pacific as sort of a foundational concept of how we're going to approach how we interact with the world. You can't have much overmatch when one of the known Chinese threats, and the threats from North Korea are ballistic missile threats. And the most effective system the United States has to counter ballistic missiles in theater is the THAAD. And now the THAAD that was deployed in South Korea is being removed from South Korea. What's that tell the South Koreans, especially after the United States spent so much time crafting this new tripartite alliance between South Korea, Japan, the United States that incorporates elements related to nuclear war, for instance, joint nuclear war planning, etc. So Japan and South Korea have taken that dangerous step forward toward nuclear confrontation with North Korea on the assumption that the United States was there to back them up. Well, guess you can't make that assumption anymore. We now know that the United States will sell anybody out for Israel. And as an American, I mean, I've always been, not always, but recently, so especially since October 7th, I've been very critical of Israel. And I've called Israel out as a threat. But, I've always left open the possibility that, it's just Netanyahu, that if you can change the government in Israel, maybe, you can change the trajectory. And I'm coming more and more to the conclusion that it's not just Netanyahu, that it's Israel in its totality, that the most dangerous threat to peace and security in the world today collectively is the state of Israel. Hopefully the Gulf Arab states come to this recognition that they have been sold a bill of goods by the United States, that this whole Abrams Accord was never about mutually beneficial economic relationship, but the absolute complete subordination of the Gulf Arab states to Israel. And the United States isn't there to secure the Gulf Arab states. The United States is there to secure Israel from the Gulf Arab states. And now that Iran has basically exposed this lie, it's imperative that the Gulf Arab states take action accordingly. And I think this is part of the Iranian strategy. By destroying the American military infrastructure, in order for America to come back, they'll have to rebuild this infrastructure. And this will require significant investment from the Gulf Arab host states. And hopefully the Gulf Arab host states say, no, we have no interest in rebuilding. Stay, leave, don't come back. And now that the CIA is pulling its assets out of the region, they too should not be allowed back in. And this is just a statement of fact that the Middle East has been infected by a cancer that is the American-Israeli posture, and that cancer has to be excised. And I think that's what Iran is in the process of doing. And even though I love my country and all this, you have to call a spade a spade. And right now, the United States is facilitating the genocide that Israel committed against the Palestinians, facilitated the slaughter of Lebanese civilians through the bombing of Beirut, and now is facilitating a genocide type attack on Iran by Israel. Take a look at what Israel is doing to Tehran. They're in the process of turning Tehran into Gaza, and they're proud of it. They're bragging about it. So we now have seen evil. We know what evil looks like, and it's time for the world to collectively work to eradicate this evil. And to weaken Israel, you have to get the United States to eliminate its aggressive posture geopolitically and militarily in the Middle East.
It's not just about, Democrats. We have Republicans coming out talking and trying to make the case against Donald Trump and what he's doing. Here is what Marjorie Taylor Greene said on Megyn Kelly's show. I think many people are talking this way and they're angry with Donald Trump. And I know that you were in the same campaign. You were thinking that Donald Trump could bring some sort of change to the foreign policy of the United States. And what is your answer to the question that Marjorie Taylor Greene was asking?
Well, we know what's going on. Donald Trump has completely sold American interests to the state of Israel, 100%. It's Benjamin Netanyahu that's calling the shots. What leverage he may or may not have over Donald Trump is irrelevant at this point. We just have to deal with the ramifications of this. But this shouldn't take anybody by surprise. Even during the campaign, we saw the degree to which Donald Trump slavishly subordinated himself to the pro-Israeli camp. Taking all that money from Miriam Adelson should have been a red flag to everybody. Then appointing just flagrant Zionists throughout his cabinet and positions of power. We saw when Tulsi Gabbard attempted to install as her deputy somebody who questioned, the aspects of Israel's dominance, that they were removed. They weren't allowed to achieve. You're not allowed to question Israel. You're not allowed to hint that there's a problem with Israel. You have to be completely subordinated to Israel. And that's the problem. Again, I just say this as an American. The number one threat to American national security is the state of Israel, straight up. And we need to eliminate it. Marjorie Taylor Greene needs to start calling a spade a spade. It's not anti-Semitic to call out threats. We're not condemning the Jewish faith. We're condemning this perverse Zionist entity that has assumed a biblical, title in order to corrupt America, corrupt democracy, and corrupt the region and corrupt the world. Israel brings nothing positive to the stage. Israel's a parasite on the global community. It exists to suck the lifeblood out of the world solely for its benefit. And until we call it that, and if we continue to pretend that Israel has legitimacy in the world today, we just allow this activity to continue. Because the moment you legitimize the state of Israel, you legitimize their government, you legitimize these programs. If Israel is legitimate and the government's legitimate, then therefore, there's a limit to the umbrage and anger and angst that we can have about the recruitment of Jonathan Pollard, an American naval analyst who sold out his country in the worst possible way. He gave away, the volumes on, American SIGINT collection. It cost us billions of dollars to gather that information. Much of that information was related to very sensitive things, to include America's nuclear war plans. And how we collect that information. Some of that was done through covert means that could put not just capabilities at risk, but people at risk. Putting brave people's lives on the line who were doing things for their nation. Jonathan Pollard sold that out to Israel. Then Israel went ahead and sold that out to get Jews out of the former Soviet Union. So the idea that he was doing this for Israel is just absurd. He was doing this as as part of a global, Zionistic endeavor that is detrimental to not just American security, but global peace and security. You got to call it out. If you don't call it out today, then shame on you, because we know what's happening. We're just not allowed to say it. But it's time that we call it out straight up. And that includes calling out the Gulf Arab states. I mean, when are the population of the Gulf Arab states going to realize that their monarchies have sold them out to the state of Israel, have become completely subordinated to the will of Israel? I mean, my God, the Palestinian people have a genocide committed against them, and the Gulf Arab states are silent. Now we know why, because they're actively complicit with the Israeli government in the conduct of this genocide. And now they're transferring that genocidal behavior onto other Arab populations in Lebanon, and now the population of Iran. we just got to call it out. And if they can't call it out, then they need to be removed. And so, yes, I'm actively encouraging the populations of the Gulf Arab monarchies to rise up and remove their corrupt regimes from power, because they're not serving you. They've abandoned you, just like the United States has abandoned them. Maybe the light's gone off, and they realize as they sit there and beg for more interceptors that we're not giving them, because we're giving those interceptors to either our forces protecting Israel or to Israel directly. That all the promises we made over the course of the past several decades, that we are the security shield, dating back to the Carter Doctrine of 1979. We are the shield that will protect you. We're not going to protect you. We're abandoning you. And when it's all said and done, we're going to want you to keep your doors open so we can come back and reassert ourselves. That can't be allowed to happen. But, hopefully the people rise up. We see in Bahrain hints of regime change as the majority Shia population not only begins to confront the corrupt Khalifa family, but also violently confront the Saudi-led Gulf, the GCC security forces that are coming in to keep Khalifa in power. Topple Khalifa, Bahrain becomes a revolutionary state, and then watch what happens in eastern Saudi Arabia, where the majority Shia population is. And then as Saudi shifts forces to deal with that, watch what Ansarallah does, because Ansarallah has been kicking Saudi butt for a number of years now. And they've been kicking UAE butt for a number of years now. And if you take the shackles off and you let the Ansarallah go wild, they will destroy the energy infrastructure of both nations, and they will physically reoccupy territory that currently is considered to be Saudi territory, but historically is Yemeni territory. And they'll reconquer that. And hopefully we could see Ansarallah marching through the streets of Riyadh to take the al-Assad family down and drag them behind them, the same way the Hashemite family was dragged through the streets of Baghdad when the Baathists rose up and removed them from power. We need this kind of cleansing in the Middle East. These corrupt monarchies have been ruling for too long. They're simply a residue of former British colonialism. And then the United States took over, guiding their neo-colonial continuation. And they've sold their people out. These people don't stand for anything. They're not very religious, because, the moment they leave their countries, they get on an airplane. When they leave the airspace, the alcohol comes out, the women dress in Western standards. They go to Paris, they go to London, and they behave ostentatiously, which is fine if you're somebody in the West who has incorporated that lifestyle. But if you're pretending that you're somehow a pious, God-fearing person, and you make that the cornerstone of your image projection in your homeland, only to find out that when you fly away, you behave differently, you're just a hypocrite. And this is the reality of the Gulf Arab states. It's 100% hypocrisy 100% of the time, and that hypocrisy has come back to haunt them.
How powerful are they militarily if they decide to go to join the United States? Because many people in the Persian Gulf, they're talking about, we are getting angry. We're going to.
I hope they get really angry. I hope they stamp their feet and turn purple in the face. Saudi Arabia has been trying to defeat Ansarallah since 2014, and they haven't done it. Ansarallah. The United Arab Emirates joined in with Saudi Arabia to try and defeat Ansarallah since 2015, perhaps. Haven't done it. Can't do it. United Arab Emirates, their military is 85% mercenaries. So, I mean, what, you're going to tell me a UAE is going to stamp
Are they from Pakistan? Or
Pakistan primarily. They come from Pakistan, India, other Bangladesh. But the point is, they're not Emirati, citizens. Emirati citizens are fat, pale, soft hands, soft skin, effeminate, because they don't know how to fight, because they don't want to fight. They let other people do their fighting for them. I mean, you'll find a couple spoiled princes because they have the lifestyle. They go to the gym and they run and they have chiseled features. But put them in a ring against the kid from the Bronx, and we'll stomp him into the dirt, because the kid from the Bronx can take a punch, been taking a punch his entire life. But these soft Emiratis, they can't take a punch, because anytime anybody threatens them, they snap their fingers and their Pakistani bodyguards come over and beat the people into a pulp. This is the reality of the totality of these Gulf Arabs. There's not a single one of them that measures in any degree of manhood. They hide behind money, money, money. They buy their way out of everything. I said this to Major General Matt Caulfield in August, I think, August of 1990. I was called in. I was being pulled out of the amphibious warfare school to be sent to a special planning cell that the Commandant of the Marine Corps is putting together to plan amphibious warfare options. And Matt Caulfield wanted to, because I was a captain going into the company of colonels. And I was recommended by some people. And he was like, I got to find out why they're recommending a captain. What the hell does a captain know? And he started questioning me. And at the end, I said, sir, he said, what do you believe in? I said, we're fighting the wrong Arabs. So the Iraqis are hard working. I mean, when you want to dig a ditch in Iraq, the Iraqis dig the ditch. When you want to get something done, the Iraqis are doing it. You go to Kuwait and they farm it out because they're just fat, obese, rich, perverted people. We're fighting the wrong Arabs. We should be fighting the Kuwaitis. We're fighting the Saudis. And he was like, why do I want you on this project? I said, well, you asked me a question. I gave you the answer. But if you order me to plan a military operation, I'll plan that military operation. That's my job. That's my duty. But my duty isn't to blow smoke up your ass. My duty is to answer the question that you give me honestly and accurately. Like that answer. And so I plotted a war against Iraq, knowing the whole time we're fighting the wrong Arabs, because the Iraqis are far more men than any Gulf Arab state will ever be. The Gulf Arab states can't fight, don't know how to fight, won't fight. They farm it out. I was in a hotel in Riyadh before the war started. We would take our meals there. We worked down in the bunker of the Ministry of Defense building. So we go across the street, and they had this, I think it was a Sheraton hotel, had a nice, buffet spread. And so we would go there, and the Saudis paid for it all because they got a lot of money. And so we're sitting there, and I had just spent the day, prepared, going through target lists and all this stuff about a conflict we're getting ready to fight to liberate Kuwait from Iraqi occupation. And at the same buffet were a bunch of Kuwaiti princes who had fled Kuwait City and were now taking refuge in Saudi Arabia. And we overheard them. They were sitting there talking to their Saudi hosts, and they said, these Americans are our mercenaries. We're paying them to come here and liberate. And the lieutenant colonel I was with basically ordered me out of the room because he saw that I was going to get up. I was going to go over there, and I was going to beat the living shit out of this Kuwaiti, stomp him into the ground. I'm nobody's mercenary. I take the orders only from my legitimate chain of command. It was deeply insulting. But the problem is that's their mindset, and that's how they view everything. They don't view anybody as their equal. They don't view anybody as a partner. You are a paid servant. When they pull out their wallet and they start putting money on the table and you take that money, they believe they own you. And in fact, they do, except now what they're finding out is they've been played the whole time, that we've let them sit there and treat us to free lunches and free hotel rooms and free this, and they buy our goods. But at the end of the day, all they're good for is facilitating the desire of their Israeli masters to promote greater Israel. What do you think the Abrams Accords is? It's not about, collective empowerment through economic development. It's not about mutual beneficial relations. It's about the Arabs subordinating themselves to a greater Israel. 100%. That's all it's about. And that's what they've done. That's what these perverse, fat, pale, effeminate, non-men rulers of these nations have done. And I'm going to say, I'm just tired. We have to start calling it out. You can't solve a problem unless you actually define a problem. And so if we continue to pretend that Saudi Arabia is a military power, when it's not, Ansarallah can defeat Saudi, and I pray they will. If Ansarallah is listening to this, march on Riyadh. Do it. Do it. Get rid of this ridiculous Al-Saud family that only came in because a bunch of Wahhabis ran around in camels and intimidated other Bedouin tribes in the 1920s and 30s. That's it. There's no legitimacy here. There's no mandate from God. They just happen to be a tribe, Al-Saud, that had better camel operators than everybody else. It's the same thing with the rest. The Emirates, the British put them in. The British put everybody in. It's colonial legacy. There's no legitimacy. They have no mandate of the people. There's no democracy. And then they got lucky because they happen to be sitting on a bunch of oil and gas that has now made them richer than they can possibly imagine. But the money doesn't bring legitimacy. The money just makes them rich. Legitimacy has to come from standing for something. Standing for something. They don't stand for democracy. They don't stand for liberty. They don't stand for justice. They're just rich. That's it. And they believe that they could sit there and leverage their control of the United States into controlling Iran. But it turned out that it was the United States controlling them, using them on behalf of Israel. And that truth has now come out. That truth has been played out in broad daylight by Iran. This is one of the greatest gifts Iran's given to the region and the world by bringing everything to a head. Everything to a head. The world will now get to see what kind of country Iran is. They'll get to see the support that the Iranian people provide to their country. And they'll also get to see the fact that the United States has been using the Gulf Arab states on behalf of Israel for decades. And they'll get to see what Israel's real plans are, that Israel is nothing more than a genocidal state wrapped into a tiny piece of territory with meaningless biblical reference. I mean, throw away the Bible and what do you have? Nothing. So the Bible is, what these Zionists are abusing to pretend that they have legitimacy, that they are God's chosen, that somehow Israel, the Israel of today, is part of a 3,000-year-old legacy. This is what, of course, the Christian Zionists believe, Mike Huckabee and Ted Cruz and others. And we're exposing the perversion of their thought, the illegitimacy of their thought. So this war, in many ways, is a clarifying moment. It's a tragic moment. And I wish it hadn't come to this. But now that it's here, we might as well just embrace all ramifications and call it out as we see it. It's not a time to hold back. It's not a time to continue to shield the truth. It's time to be brutally honest about everything. If you're out there and you want to be pro-Israel, say it. Acknowledge it. Be honest about it. Be honest. Because the people are tired of the lies. They're tired of the lies. It's time we have the truth. And if America truly wants to be a nation that has foregone its status as a constitutional republic, wants to operate as nothing more than a collective of sheep underneath a cult of personality serving the interests of greater Israel, fine. Fine. Just be honest about it. We have an election coming up. Tell the American people that's what they're voting for. When you vote for me, Donald Trump, or vote for my party, what you're voting for is greater Israel. We're not hiding it. It's there. We're voting for greater Israel, and we're not voting for the Constitution. You're voting to empower me, a cult of personality. I will continue to rename buildings in my name. I will continue to drop banners with my face. I will continue to make sure that everything centers around me, Donald Trump. If you can't see as an American what's happening, what other sitting president has operated with this degree of hubris and narcissistic arrogance? None. America is infected with a sickness, a disease that's destroying what we are. And what we're doing in the world today is just facilitating the downward slide of our nation. We do need to resize ourselves. We have to understand that we aren't the sole remaining superpower, that the world is not conditioned to continue American hegemony. That doesn't mean America goes away, though. We just have to resize ourselves to the appropriate size, the size we should be of a nation of 340 million people with the natural resources that we have. But that means we have to learn how to live in, as equals with Russia, with China, with India, with others. But we can't live as equals. We're the most arrogant people on the planet, other than the Israelis. And we've subordinated ourselves to the Israelis. So there we go.